pronounced this right. Baksho Bondi.
Baksho
Bondi.
Yes.
Baksho Bondi.
You have to do goal.
Hi everyone, I'm Sigrid from the Juggernaut. I'm here with the amazing producers, cast, directors of Baksho Bondi, which means Shadowbox. I am Bengali, so I'm going to be especially biased during this entire interview. But I'm really excited to be with you here all today. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first question, which I hope is a little bit very easy. Why the name Baksho Bondi? Bondi. Sorry, I got it right. Baksho Bondi. Why Baksho Bondi?
Yeah. You want to try it now? Baksho Bondi is a very interesting name in Bengali, which means many things at many levels. Which is image-wise, it's Baksho, which means box, and Bondi, which is trapped. But on many levels, it means trapped, as in your desires are trapped, your feelings are trapped, or you make a box around yourself so that you are trapped. So it's actually a very complicated combination of feelings and meanings, and it felt just right for our film, and it has been there for the longest time, and we have been writing the script for a very long time, and this name has always stuck to this story. This feels right. And Shadowbox, which is the English name, which is a fairly new edition, doesn't really translate, but
I mean, we took a long time to find this title, because the Bengali title is kind of being so much about the state of mind, which English didn't have an exact translation. So for Shadowbox, the connection was that it also Shadowbox refers to the what a soldier's medals are framed in, and so we thought that brought in the thematic element of Sundar's PTSD and so on, and but it's also the image of shadowboxing, which is an important part of the film when you see it, and it's a clear an image of a shadow in a box, which ties with Bengali.
Yeah, thank you for explaining. I was definitely thinking about the shadowboxing part with Debu and the rap, but I want to talk a little bit about imagery that you just spoke about. Tanushree, and I'm opening this up to everybody. Tanushree, you said in an interview that very simply, this film is about the everyday fight of a working woman with a bicycle who single-handedly holds her family together. And you have that really, it's such an interesting kind of visual of the bicycle throughout the film. I would love to open this up to everybody. Is there a specific visual imagery that stood out to you from the movie that you want to kind of talk about and kind of that you want the audience to remember? Shaunak, go first.
Well, I was going to go for the cycle, but
I'm sure you went for it.
I, as you can imagine, have a special interest and purchase on non-human life. So I think in terms of the images of the film, eventually I think it's him going after the frogs and having this kind of tenderness and gentleness that I think articulates something of his character. I think that sort of remained with me. But also, the strength of the film is this tapestry of small, nuanced moments, like the laying out of the talcum powder on the floor. It's really these kinds of scenes that I think visually sort of stay.
Anyone else?
I think honestly, the last shot of the film will always kind of stay such a powerful image that it's very difficult to, at least now when you think about it, think of a better or a more, just a significant kind of image than that. But as Shaunak said, I think there's so many small little moments in the film that is the dogs barking or it's the frogs in themselves. I think there's many of these small little things. Or it's the scene inside the hut when again, spoiler alert, she ends up finding the husband, and it's just the way that Somo shot that with the light, and I just remember Lily's close up very specifically in that scene being just, very special. Many of these small little things. But yes, but that climactic shot for me is just...
Makes sense, yeah.
Can I add to that? Yeah. Cycle, and even because we shot in real location, and it is a suburbs of Kolkata, and it has a certain history. That's these spaces. These are very old towns, very old settlements. People have lived there forever, and it's a continuous civilization, if we can call it that. And there is this beautiful work in terms of there are lots of grills and things like that. And for us it was that everybody has their own boxes, and how the way how Maya uses her cycle, which is made of metal, which is also rods and spokes. There's that box sometimes, and the ideas shift. They're not always negative. Sometimes they're protective. Sometimes they protect her. Sometimes it sort of gives her shade of protection, and sometimes it also boxes, also closes in. So we sort of worked like all these were there, and Somu's cinematography sort of brought it in the forefront. Tillotama's performance brought it in the forefront in how she used the cycle and how he used all these windows and different grills and structures. So they together form a sort of language, which is also then becomes emotional and just doesn't stay just a thing in the background.
Yeah, no, I definitely think I love so much of the visual imagery, and I think I was going to ask you, what were some of your cinematic influences? Because we rarely do see the Kolkata suburbs, right? We've seen rural areas through Satyajit Ray, we've seen a lot of that, but when you think about Kolkata in mainstream fare, it's often, Howrah Bridge, it's often the taxis, the yellow taxis, that's the visual imagery we see. But here, this is a very distinct visual language. So how did you craft it yourself?
So if I could answer, one is that this is where Tanushree is from.
Yeah.
And secondly, our choice was to go and live there for the year leading up to the shoot. So rather than have references from cinema, the reference was the location, the space, going for walks every day, and so I think that way the visuals came very much from the place, and there's that kind of talking to the place. So we didn't go with references really, we went, it came very much as an organic part of where we shot and the culture it was shot in, and it also being where Tanushree is from.
So it's not about showing, it's about what is.
Yeah.
So when you show a river, a little bit of Howrah Bridge, so there's no taxi, because there's no taxi like that. There is taxi, but not for our culture where the story comes from. She has the cycle. So instead of showing, being, so that sort of shifted the language and what you see in the film.
For sure.
So,
and then Tillotama, I want to switch a little bit to you. Maya's constantly performing labor, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, whether it's, just even one of the visuals that stayed with me was like the hurt in her face when her own brother takes away the form that she's applying for her husband's job. And the second scene for me is when you're tearing up marigolds, which is, I think it's kind of like an interesting callback to me from Monsoon Wedding. It's completely...
oh yes!
Guys!
Oh yes!
So, Genda Pool. You cannot escape.
Yes!
So, Tillotama, how did you think about, depicting Maya's internal struggles externally? Like, what were kind of the moments that you were kind of either adding or ad-libbing or kind of playing off the script when it came to how do I depict her internalities externally as well?
I don't think as an actor you're trying to get what is inside outside. I think your only attempt is to work on what's happening inside. And if there is something happening inside, the chances are it'll be outside. But if there's nothing happening inside, there's not going to be anything outside. And my directors had put in so much, given me so much to put inside that I really didn't have to do much work for this one, because all of Maya's personal effects, from the letters that she might have received from Sundar when they were in love, her obsessive accounting, these things were her handkerchief, her watch, of course the cycle, all these things, photographs of the people that made Maya, that were shared with me, very, very intimate, very tender things, the music, the songs that, so all this was already shared over a period of 4-5 years. So and it was a gift that kept giving. You know, they were like that. They constantly gave me things while I was doing other things. I would look at it, and I like this kind of learning because I do very badly with did very badly with school because the focus so much of it was on rote memory and externalizing what you have learned instead of really internalizing what we are trying to learn. And I do very well in these slow burn processes where clues are given in and they have their time. They have the time to grow within you and take interesting shapes, and you really never know what caused what. And I like that. I like the not knowing that really which input of Somo and Tanushree led to this moment. It's a combination of 5 years of exchanging that led to it. So it wasn't really like the work in this was really felt quite just effortless. Because they were so generous with creating Maya.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, how did you convince her?
They didn't have to convince me.
It just happened. Well, I think one thing I want to talk about is like one scene that I want to hone in on, and I'm curious what other people thought when they saw this scene specifically. There's a scene where you are fighting with your son, and you're saying, "Amito Manush," like I'm a person too, and you're really upset. I want to explain all the spoilers. You're really upset, and you kind of go on a monologue where you talk about how not only do you have to work outside the home, you come home, then you have to do more work. Then you have the son, you're helping him with his homework. You're kind of helping him feed him. Half the time he's not even eating your food, and you don't even know because he's eating outside the house. And there's all this immense frustration. And I'm really curious because that is the reality, unfortunately, of many, many, many women, not just in India, but around the world. So I'm just really curious to hear from everyone, like how much of Maya, how much of this film is like a stand-in for that female labor, and how do you guys think about that? And Tillotama, you can start first, but other people can chime in as well.
No, I think Tanushree should start this.
Yeah. Oh, I can go on then. It'll because no, because I think it's very easy to be a fighter and go break walls, and because you have a whole army. When you do that, you have like-minded people, and you go for that fight and you go for that. But every day, right now as we speak, we have invisible people, and let's not just say that it's unfortunate that it's mostly women, but I wouldn't also. There are beautiful men who are also doing that all around us, completely invisible, and they just run the world. Without any name, without any credits, and sometimes heavily underpaid, and they just run it. Or not paid at all. Yes, it's not paid at all. If you're a ma, you don't get paid for being ma, and you just give your everything. You give your everything if you're a wife, and just go on and on and on. So I just wanted to, put it in front, even for myself, and to see how that is possible, and what does that do, and how you react to that then.
Yeah.
And for me, that is very important. That first, we accept it. Second, we recognize that, and recognize that at an everyday level. So, and it came out of that effort. And I think Amito Manush is like, and just recognize that we are human.
Yeah, and it applies to almost every character.
Yes.
Sundar is also human. Dev was a human. Every one of
Yes.
these people are human beings.
Yes. You were going to say something.
That's Tanushree favorite line.
I say, when my son gives me a hard time, I say to him, am I not a mom? Like, I'm an 8-year-old mom, you're an 8-year-old kid, and I'm human too. So come on, let's do it together. So yeah.
You were about to say something?
No, I was going to just
Yeah.
add to that.
Yeah.
Did anybody else want to comment on how we kind of depict labor in film?
So this moment really actually exemplifies what is, I think, one of the biggest strengths of the film. That through character, it's bringing through, like in this instance, it's bringing through the whole idea of unpaid female labor and the scale of the labor that is taken on, emotionally and physically, in every way possible. And similarly, all these other themes, mental illness, the social stigma around it, the stresses and pain of caregiving. All of it comes through so powerfully through character and through performance. So it's a film about these different issues, but it's expressing them in these very nuanced ways.
Also, I mean, just obviously, motherhood is just besieged and saddled with such trite these things of of magnanimity, of piety, and so on. So the fact that you have a moment of a kind of raw, unvarnished, ugly outpouring of somebody sort of staking claim in the most foundational kind of humanity, it's just saying I'm also human, I think is important also because especially the mother figure in Indian cinema is quite, we all know how loaded with platitudes that is. So I think that's a scene that not just is powerful but also speaks to all of our actual experience. We've all had moments of, surplus of fatigue with mothers, and you suddenly get, we've all had moments where some sort of a mirage breaks down where, something has, the final straw has sort of been added, and so there's a real searing truth that one feels from in that scene especially.
Palafna, did you want to add to that?
Yeah. I remember when I was in college preparing for a very important exam, and my life was very academically oriented, and it was very life and death, and I felt the only way I can get out of this situation is if I get a scholarship, and I had a 7-year plan that I had to follow, and no matter what came in the way. And during that very important juncture, my grandmother passed away, my father's mother, and my father was booking his tickets to go to Calcutta, and my mum said, "What are you doing? I want to go as well." And I looked at her and I said, "That's not possible because I have my exam, I have to study, and I have a younger brother, and so the cooking, running the house, I won't be able to do it. And you know that if I miss this step, my dream gets deferred by 3 more years. Paternal, Baba's ma. Amma had passed away, and my mom wanted to go, and I was like, but she's passed away, and we are alive. Yeah. So I think you need to stay here and do your duty as a mother, so that I can do my duty as a student and get on with it." And I thought I made a very cogent argument. And she said, "I don't think you're going to understand this, and it's okay, but I'm going to go. I have to do things for myself too." And she's a very dear friend, and she's not my mother, but she's a very dear friend. So I was fuming and I was angry, and I thought it was a very irresponsible and a very unmother-like thing to do. And she says, "You won't understand it now, and I don't expect you to, but it's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it for myself." And my mom has had an extraordinary influence on my life, and someone I'm very, very inspired by. And it's true, I never understood her, and I hated her for it. I also hated her for many other reasons, and which include her desire to be engaged with the community in which she lives. And I often felt that her need to protect the community, surpassed her time for us. And I could never understand it as a younger person, why she would be going and spending nights in our neighbors' homes when they were unwell. And she said, because they can't stay up all night, and I always wanted to be a nurse. And I thought that was a ridiculous argument back then. I do understand it now, and how. And I really look up to it, and I'm really proud that I have a mother like that who prioritized her needs over ours, and very selfish need at that point of time. That was mine, and I see and I felt that in that line, Kyamyo Pamanish, So yeah,
I love that. Yeah, and I think what's interesting about that scene is the way it ends is still reinforcing some of that labor that mothers do, because at the end, Babe was crying, and who's consoling him but you? Like the mother is still consoling him at the end, even though you're the one going through a lot of the pain. So.
She did.
I think because we can. There lies our strength.
Yeah. There's infinite.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit also about what you all have taught each other. So, for example, like you all as producers, what drew you to this film? what have Tanushree and Saumyananda, can I say that? Or okay, sorry, like the longer name. What have they taught you? Like, what did you find interesting in this project? And then, have they helped you at all, or they just like just adding their names? Like the group project, they just add their names at the end. So like, I'm just curious how it all happened, how you all joined, and how you've learned from them and how they've learned from you.
So it started first with Somo and I had worked on a film in the past. He was at DP and I had worked on the music and I was with him, and we got the germ of this idea that they started together and worked to us. And from then on, we developed the script, and I think on the basis of the script, there were a lot of people who saw an immense value in the project and came on board with that. And then eventually that family and that community grew to people who joined after the film was made. The film was shot and edited, and now through the entire process. And the model with which everyone was bought on was one of community, and I think that's perhaps the thing that I've learned the most from them as well, is through this entire process of really guarding, that small flame or that tender core of an idea with immense emotional and moral integrity. And I think that's something that really at its core has also been a beacon and has drawn a lot of people to this project who saw in the script also that artistic merit, but also in the purpose of making also a larger purpose in helping independent film. So I'd say that's definitely what I've learned from them. And in terms of how it came together, it was a model of trying to find a way where we could, both in a practical and equitable way, make a film like this with guarding its artistic integrity, which was to try and find, because it's quite difficult to get an independent film mounted, try and find a practical way where we could share that difficulty and share that risk with a large number of people. And we have, this incredible group of people who've joined. And it's then grown into something where it wasn't just sharing that risk, but also building a community where everyone came in with their own strength. And not just in terms of a practical way of mounting the project, but also in terms of, a support on a creative level and a strategic level, and a way that the film can not only just get made, but get made in the best version of itself, and also find a way where that film can get made and find an audience and have a long-term journey where it can really fulfill its full goal.
But many of the producers have been huge allies in the creative journey of the film. We've subjected them to many drafts of the script. We've subjected them to many versions of the edit, and their patience and their generosity in responding to these multiple iterations as we navigated our journey through this. So it was also having that those shoulders to go to when we needed, and to have that counsel back. And it was a so that way they were much more than what you'd usually think of as just a producer. They were friends, they were collaborators as well. So
if I may add just an interesting story, basically, and I think I have read it in articles where it happens to big films with big budget. So for our film, Sid actually came to Barakpur. He actually set the LUT of the film right at the beginning of the film, so we knew how our film is going to look. Right, Sid? Correct my. So he actually came there, and we had great food at that time because he's a great foodie, and he stayed there for the first 2-3 days. So we had him, and so this is. And then this film then went on to his studio, and even now every time there is an export, there's a double export. Oh, you have to add one more name. No, change this, change that. Without any complaint, all these things they happen. It's like magic. It just happens. So the support is every day, and even now it's every day, literally every day. Whether it's woolens, whether it's my clothes that Tillotama went and got me, or so it's at many levels. So it's not just it happened at pre-production or during production or post-production. It is life support. If we can, it's literally life support. So it's not just. So yes, no, they're not just names.
They're not just names.
No, not at all.
Just clarifying.
I think it's a very transparent artistic alignment.
Yeah.
It's, I probably didn't know, I just knew 2 people and I knew those work, but we never spoke till the first screening that we saw at the studio. Of course, we had worked on one of the film on YouTube, but we never met individually, we never spoke individually, but there was this absolute artistic alignment through each other's work. And it's like a trust circle that just went on increasing. And it's magical, it's practical, it's pragmatic.
Even for me, I came on through having relations with Dheer and Anu, and I met everyone on this beautiful journey. But I think with what Somo has attempted here is really the spirit of the project. It's just amazing that everyone is in this together. For me, that was something that really drew me into it, to see the purpose of this is happening and knowing how difficult it is for independent film and to champion this and really be a part of it, apart from conviction, the story and everyone's amazing work. It's really the purpose and everyone's efforts to try to get more stories from India out there, and seeing how things are really moving for independent cinema globally from India I think it's very reassuring and a good time, and I hope it's a sustainable model for everyone to keep doing this ahead.
Do you want to add anything?
So I'm probably the last of the producers to ever come on board, I think, because I worked with Somo on Black Warrant, and then he was my cinematographer on the scenes. And then he said, "I've made this film, will you go see it?" I went and saw it. I really liked it, and then Naren was like, "Would you like to come on board?" So I said, "Of course, 100%." I mean, it was a no-brainer. Someone asked me for feedback. I might have mumbled a few lines just because he asked me. I had no feedback. I was like, maybe this, that. But to Ishan's point, I think this model of people coming together to whatever way they can, whether it's in kind, whether it's in cash, whether it's in creative input, or whether it's in muscle, heft, whether it's in heft of what you can achieve afterwards to be able to sell the film or release the film or take it to a streamer or whatever. I think everybody brings something to the table. I think it's a model that I think is sustainable because everybody's coming in. You're not getting 1 or 2 people to come in. Filmmaking expensive. You're not getting 1 or 2 people for a large chunk of money. You're getting a bunch of people for smaller chunks of money, which I think is workable. But so I think it's something that I think one should keep doing, at least for indie cinema. And also just generally what Naren and Jim and Sid, the fact that they've actually just won a award at Sundance and Sabar Bonda. It's fantastic. And if it's just all of this is just I think good signs for the future.
Yeah. So I think what was really interesting is all of you were saying that it's really tough to mount an independent film. So let's talk about that in a second, because what I'm noticing is kind of an interesting trend where mainstream Hindi cinema, which is what India has long been known for, seems to be struggling at the box office, but we're seeing all these kind of very specific films in Malayalam, in Marathi, and now in Bengali really kind of catching on in a much more international way. Do you think there's a reason for that it's happening now?
Well, okay. So I don't know there's a specific socio-political reason. Of course, it is the case that suddenly filmmakers are more attuned to grants or international forms of co-production. That's one thing. I think generally tech has become comparatively cheaper. That's another aspect. But I don't know. It's a bit of a black box for me in terms of what changed for films to suddenly do well in festivals. Because clearly there is a discernible shift. I do think that the exposure to world cinema, I imagine, is a sort of thing. But these are all clutching at straws, really. And I'm loath to say any one factor. But clearly the needle is, jumping because Sabar Bonda was the first Indian fiction film to win at Sundance. That's giant. That's really, really big. And every year there feels like there's some sort of a landmark that's being hit. I think it's because a few years ago, and I'd like to imagine that non-fiction sort of began it. I think there are a lot of non-fiction films. And also, well, I think that, like the usual suspects of non-fiction films that did quite well, and it suddenly strikes me that in all of those films, actually, Sid has worked on. There's not one film that I can think of in recent years that has done well in festivals outside that doesn't have the cold, steely hands of Sid.
I think that's the answer.
I think the main socio-political determinant of a film doing well is bridge.
I need to know your secret now.
I think it was a joke amongst a lot of people that, if Sid even touches one frame, it might just land up somewhere. Naturally, but I don't know. It's just, I really don't have an answer to this. It's just that I've kind of started working in the industry mostly on independent films and kind of found this band of brothers, and it's been really a learning experience with all of them. Like right now, I am still just starting out on this journey as a producer with Lorraine, and we kind of managed to hold a few films that have reached certain places, which does give us hope that we can continue doing this. And I'm sure we will see, distribution for some of them, and that will just give us impetus to kind of keep doing this more and more.
Any other thoughts on why this is happening now? Because it's very obvious. Like now, I'm not so sure that independent cinema is harder than mainstream fare.
I think to Shaunak's point, I think that Indian filmmakers have discovered grants, and they also have sort of discovered. There's been many more. Maybe this is a legacy of the film bazaar kind of like trickling its way down, where producers from Europe have attached themselves to Indian movies to be able to get them exposure at festivals, to get them distribution deals and stuff. But I also believe it's just that if you take just the last 2 years, working backwards from whether it's Sabar Bonda, whether it's All We Imagine As Light, the Girls Will Be Girls, in the fiction space, having really broken out at the festivals, but not only that, but also actually getting distribution. I think that's what's always been the tricky part for indie films here is exactly that. So I think it's a good sign. But again, this is 3 films out of like the many hundreds that are made. So it's generally always tough for the industry, but it takes 2-3 films to work before things start to sort of like roll. So I'm very positive that this is a good sign going forward.
I think one should also signpost that certain pitching fora or incubation labs like Film Bazaar, like Doc Edge in Calcutta, like The Good Pitch, etc., where suddenly this sort of world of foreign co-pro grants, and you learn the ropes of a certain skill that is very, that's required and that is instrumentable. So grant writing is a certain kind of form that needs practice and know-how. So all of that, I think, sort of in slow dribbles started a few years ago, especially with these kinds of fora. Especially with non-fiction, because it's so predicated on like getting funding from, because we don't have a ready sort of band of producers. Also, I do think that why distribution worked out was that around this time, just when some of these films started doing well, a lot of filmmakers in mainstream cinema also sort of showed support and champion. So that also goes a long way. Like for instance, for All That Breathes, the earliest people who just one social media post helps. Like Vikram put up a post when the film won at Sundance, and some other filmmaker. And at that point, we were gobsmacked. We couldn't believe that anybody cares about But it matters. It matters that Nikhil Advani and Jim Sarbh and all the people in this, it really matters that because essentially as we're discovering to our shock and delight is that obviously the world of films is not as cleaved or as mutually exclusive into buckets as one always assumed they were. It's not as ossified and calcified as separate blocks, and actually it's obviously so these sort of things together I think created a more favorable ecosystem of. And suddenly, I think about 5 years ago, it became cool again to get to a good festival in a more mainstream way. And I think that also shifts the needle a bit. Yeah.
That's true. It's a lot of, FOMO, fear of missing out, all these social dynamics at play as well. Yeah. No, I think that's really fair. I want to kind of return a little bit to the idea that this is a Bengali film. So I think that I personally don't get to see that many that are kind of new, fresh, and kind of enter into the space where it's, like I said, a little bit different than what we've seen before. Why was it important for this film to be in Bengali for you?
It's my story, I'm Bengali.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. It's inspired from my mother's struggle so I thought to do something which is closer to home, emotions that I understand, cultural nuances that I understand will actually help to communicate. But I don't also think that it's just a Bengali film because I think there is something universal about it also, and our country is so beautiful and in so many ways. Like this is just our first film. I want to explore other languages also, and that the fact that we can do it is beautiful, and I think and the fact that Bengali cinema has such a heritage.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it was actually quite scary for us. I was like, where we are stepping into the history, because we know the history. We're like, oh, okay. So, but nevertheless, it also gave us courage.
Yeah.
And we're like, it's all there. Yeah. You just have to dip our hands into it, and things will come out.
Can you share some specific Bengali dialogue or phrases, either from the movie or words that you really enjoyed inserting into? Because sometimes there's specific words that are just so textured that there's not always a perfect translation for. I'll share some of my favorites, but I'd love to hear from you if you tried to insert them into the dialogue, because those words specifically resonated for you.
I'll just, without making it a spoiler, I'll just give an example. Like there is a certain scene where there's a lot of one of the neighbor really shouts at her, and I remember when we were rehearsing the scene, and she's a brilliant actress, and we were rehearsing. So first we used a lot of dirty language to express the anger, and at one time I realized that it's not needed. I said, why don't you try and abuse her for what is good in her? And she, my actress, came up with that improvisation, and then actually what she tells her is actually whatever is her quality.
Yeah.
And then we realized that you actually don't have to use profanities. It's that. So her frustration, she's also another woman, comes out, and so for me that was incredible. And here is this amazing performer, and there is that amazing performer, beautiful women, strong women going at each other, and taking out their frustration, and she just stares so no need of middle fingers and ugly things. It just comes out. It's one of my favorite things that was created. And
one of my favorite scenes was she's talking to the police officer, and the police officer goes I might mess up the Bengali, please forgive me. It's do you think yarki marchi? Do you think I'm yanking your string? Do you think I'm joking?
Yeah.
And that's just such a specific Bengali phrase that I hadn't heard in a while, that just stayed with me, that specific word, apart from amito manush, which is yarki marchi. Do you think I'm joking? And I think
it's the police officer who actually says that.
the police officer to her. Yeah.
So I thought this is all a joke.
Yeah, do you think this is all a joke? So I think that stayed with me. I don't know if there was any particular dialogue in Bengali that stayed with you as well from this film.
Actually, it was a word in Hindi. Actually, it's a scene where Sundar is giving Maya a massage, and she's trying to learn Hindi. She's reading a book, and I have to thank Sudeep Sharma for giving me that book, and because I was shooting for Patal Lok before that, and that set gave me so much support and so much love. And just a few days after that, I came into this, and it was just fortuitous that book traveled with me. And while he's giving a massage, Maya's trying to learn Hindi because she wants to be able to converse. And there was a word, budbudana. which I learned from that book, and it's also a word which is like things bubbling gently, you know. Yeah, it's crazy, you know, how these things happen. So sorry, it's not a Bengali thing, but Bangla, I've grown up with Bangla, and you know, like being a Bengali, and I knew that being a Probashi Bengali who doesn't live there, and my parents really are very proud, very easily proud of everything I do. But when it comes to anything in Bangla, all knives are out, you know. So my mom said, whatever you do, the Bangla chobi korcho, then nak katiyo na, you know. That you better not sound like this anglicized convent girl who has never, you know, lived in Kolkata. So you practice with whoever you want, practice enough. So Tanushree had my back that if anything sounds, thankfully Maya also comes from, she has access to education, and she was, you know, so some of my own incapacities with the language, not living and, you know, living there, I don't know how to write actually or read in Bangla. Yeah. So these incapacities were also covered by the fact that Maya comes from a certain access, she has certain access to education. But so because Ma and Baba were so particular that I get it right, and it was very important that we get the Bangla right. But for me, the joy was in this kind of like we don't see it very often in films where characters go from one language to another without it being explained. Yeah. I like these moments of cross-pollination that happens in life so everywhere, you know. Yeah. But we hesitate because we think that we might have to explain why this is happening and why this language comes in. And I love that. I love that when it happens. I love that moment. Yeah.
No, I love that because I'm also Probashi Bengali, so my first language was actually Chhattisgarhi, then Hindi, and so
very confusing.
It's very confusing. So when Sundar and Maya are speaking, I was like, wait, I understand that because that's my family. Like half the words are in Hindi and half the words are in Bengali, and it was just so realistic. So thank you for sharing that about language. I think, Tillotama, you hinted at this, which was, I think what's really interesting about this film is it leaves a lot of things blank. So going back to shadowboxing and shadows, there's a lot of shadows in this film, right? We never really know whether Sundar sells the frogs to colleges. We never really know how he developed, you know, his PTSD. We don't really know how Maya and Sundar actually met and fell in love. We see some photos, but we don't really know. What did you guys sketch in for some of these backstories, or what are some of the things you'd like to imagine has happened in this film that didn't make it to the final cut? Why? Because I'll start with you.
I love that kind of filmmaking. So for me, it's like, it's just like.
I mean, it's all over Udaan. Like we don't know.
We don't know exactly why they are the way they are. In fact, one of the questions in my head right now is actually going to ask Tanushree later after this. Is the fact that in Barakpur, for example, would a Bengali woman being married to somebody who speaks Hindi be looked down upon culturally? Yeah. And is that something that, you know, is again, it's just like another layer which not explained but is cool.
No, I would like to answer that because it's very important for the story. See, Barakpur, very interesting, and if you think they were kids in pre-internet era. So, and Kolkata is not as cosmopolitan during that time as say Mumbai or Delhi. Okay, so intercultural relationship is much more limited than say a Mumbai, but very interesting thing about Barakpur is that Barakpur is literally the barrack. It's the oldest cantonment of India. So the entire India comes there. Anybody who has been in the army have had their family trained in Barakpur. So even us as kids, we used to meet all kinds of people. I think that is where I understood Indian diversity, because I have met Jats, I have met Punjabis, I have met South Indian, like I met Tamilians, all kinds of people, and we used to interact with them, and they are all away from their family, so they would like to interact with people. And like Maya's story, there are so many stories like Maya's stories actually from Barakpur. Yeah. You go to a shop, you're munching on some road street food, and there's these young 19-year-old, you know, nice shaven head, taunt boys who don't look like, you know, fat-bellied, like, you know, mota kaku, and they're like really hot, you know, other community boys, and you be like, wow, and then you're having fuchka, and then something happens and you fall in love. So Somo and I had these whole storylines Like if I can sit and tell you hours of what happened to Maya and Sundar. But the fun part is that imagine this Bengali brings in a Uttarakhandi to her house. Imagine what happens in Uttarakhand. Sundar takes her to Uttarakhand and he's a Bisht. He's like, we also have to understand all these nuances of culture, caste, class. So all these are the sub-stories. And if we belong to any of these communities, we actually understand what will happen. So that's why we left it open, is because we know these things as Indians, and we know those are not the main points of our story. Yes, they are like the violence, which is the residue. All these are also residues in the story. They are the backstory. We have it all, but they trigger, and because of that, story happens. What you see are triggered by all of them. The caste, class, difference, and like my parents, my mother was the first one in a family of 12 to have love marriage. And they didn't like that. And when she went to my father's house, and I was the first daughter in all 4 male household, so they were actually chucked out of the house for giving birth to a girl child. So it all happened to them. And I took that inspiration and tried to understand what happened to them, a Maya and a Sundar. And that's why, the help doesn't come really to how her family actually, her mother, Maya's mother, doesn't even talk to her. She can't take the shame of what she has done to that family. So it's a shame actually. And if you see in 21st century, yes, very much. We may be very, we don't speak it so openly, maybe it doesn't come out so openly, but it happens. You ask, when you go into the depth of the family, it still exists, these kind of stigmas. And we thought that all this is very important. Yeah, but we don't explain it.
Yeah, it was very important during the writing to really invest in this past, and then like what Tanushree is saying about residue. So we are meeting these people after a lot has happened in their lives. Maybe the most dramatic years of Maya's life are over. When he got discharged from the army, and we can have many ideas of this. So, but we had that backstory that we discussed, but we even didn't want to direct the actors to have the same backstory. They also brought their own different backstories. So it was very important to while we were creating, to put a lot in, and then take it all out, and then but something. Tilly often uses the word of the ghosts of the past. So there's a scene later on where Maya, in a moment of anger, just mentions Sundar's sister, and throughout the film you have no mention or anything of Sundar's family. But and during the script and in the edit, a lot of people said, there's no connection, we should take that out. But just that one line suddenly makes real that this person there's a whole lot that we don't know about that person. And so that kind of those points of connect with a history and a reality that we feel but we don't know. And I think that is also true to how we interact with people. There's so much we don't know. So it's important not to reveal everything.
Sorry, I'm going to just ask, I would love for everyone just to go one by one and just say a sentence or something you want to leave the audience with when it comes to this film. Because that's our wrap up. But I want everyone to say something. I'm going to call on everyone. It's audience participation.
For me, it's really the resilience and how it's of an everyday and how she really battles through. So the hope that if you keep fighting through and sticking it together, there is hope. So it's the resilience.
You're just going to resonate, like
like what do you want the audience to take away from this film after they watch it? Like what would you want them to think about?
Yes, hope. Hope is the word which I pick, and a possibility of we live with so many people around us who are just not existing, but they run this world. And to have tenderness, have that compassion, that all these layers, all these people, everyone exists in this ecosystem, and it's so easy to just ignore them and erase them. So I think that tenderness, the film gives that tenderness. So when we come out from that word, it's like everything feels, you see everything that's invisible. So, yeah, tenderness and hope.
Thank you.
I want them to take away how good Tillotama is.
Well done, well done. Good answer.
We've all talked a lot about the resilience, and it's actually following on from what Vikram said in terms of all the little moments where you can see the world inflicting pain and humiliation, and yet you never once think of Maya as a victim. You know, that strength which is just maintained all the way through. So, yeah, that.
For me, I think it would be that at its core, it's a love story.
I think for me it would be not an emotion or meaning but form. The fact that a film can be this restrained, quiet, at times productively opaque and mysterious, and still work in its muted gentleness.
Sometimes the right thing to do may be a very painful thing to do, which is recognizing that I perhaps should have done this before. Maya has to make a choice, and I think that choice, how difficult that choice was, the difficulty of that choice, that it's something you don't realize, that you have to sometimes walk away from something to actually save it. And it's tough to walk away because it feels like you're abandoning. But in that walking away, there's a sense of lightness, a time to recoup, a time to, because I don't think a mother's love is infinite, because that just makes scientifically no sense. Our bodies are made of real things, flesh and blood and cells that break down, and there's real fatigue, muscular and emotional. And since it is finite, and unless you don't want to die while you're still alive, then you have to take away time to recover, so that you can go back and you can keep loving. It's I like that tension. I like that tension in this film, pulling away, coming back, and yeah.
That's spoken a lot. But the complexities of love and also the aspect of caregiving, which hasn't been mentioned, but and how when you look from the outside, the bonds of a family could look very different than when you look at it from the inside. And for me, the love and the pride that the son and the wife feels for Sundar, who the outside mock, was a very key thing to understand and to celebrate.
I really wanted to understand while making this film also, and I wish that we could try and understand people before judging why they do what they do. I wish we could just try and first say, no, I won't judge, let me find out. Because if we could all do that in life, many things will not be ugly and horrible and painful. We don't need a lot to change things. And I wanted to find out if that's possible even inside me. And I think that was my journey in the film, and I wish we can talk about it with this film. Just get us talking.
Yeah, empathy,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love it if an audience, and if it's an audience of filmmakers walking out of this, seeing this film and knowing that this is actually possible and this model can actually work, and like the general audience to just go back and just recommend it to their friends and buy another ticket. I mean, that would be great.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much. Yes. Okay, I have to pronounce this right. Baksho Bondi. Baksho Bondi.
Yes.
Baksho Bondi.
You have to do gol gol.
Gol Gol. This is Baksho Bondi.
Yes. Yes.
And this is Snigdha, this is the Juggernaut, and this is all these amazing producers, actors, directors, crew. Thank you all so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.